I think we're all aware just how expensive video production can be. And so when it comes to looking for great cinema lenses, I think looking at budget-friendly options can be a great idea. So today, I want to break down some of my favorite budget-friendly cinema lenses, as well as tell you what to be on the lookout for if you're shopping for budget cinema lenses, so you can know what's important, what's not important, and where you can save your money. Okay, now quick disclaimer. I am completely aware that this is not a cinema lens. However, I wanted to briefly just talk about the importance of purchasing inexpensive photography lenses, especially when you're just getting started. This lens comes in at just under $150, and at $150, this is a fantastic lens. Now, no, it is not cinema. However, it will 100% work for you when it comes to shooting video. The other nice benefit of shooting with a lens like this, especially at this price point, is you maybe don't know exactly which lens you're looking for yet, and you don't want to invest a ton of money at the very beginning. So working with inexpensive photography lenses can be a fantastic option. This is the Nifty 50 from Canon, and if you don't shoot Canon, there are tons of alternative options just like this for most other systems. Like Sony has one, Nikon has one. Most big camera manufacturers are gonna give you a nice, inexpensive 50mm just to get started. And there are a couple other options like 24s, 35s, and other small primes that you can get without breaking the bank. Okay, but I know why you're here. We're here to talk cinema lenses. So the first cinema lens that we're gonna talk about today is the 7 Artisan lens. Now, this is the 7 Artisan 50mm T2.0, and this lens, for the price, is just amazing. First of all, I have to talk about the build quality. The entire lens, including the actual cap itself, is all made out of metal, which means that this thing is going to be able to take a beating, which on most sets, it's not really all that clean. I mean, I know a lot of YouTubers and filmmakers try to make our sets look really clean because they want to look aesthetically pleasing, but when you're actually running and gunning and working, your gear tends to take a little bit of a beating because you're having to put it through so much. And so a lens like this with this type of build quality, in my opinion, is fantastic, especially at this price. Also, with this lens, you're not only going to be getting a nice small compact lens, but it's also built with an internal threading system, so that way you can put circular filters on here. So if you want to keep it nice and small and not have to put a matte box on it, this is a fantastic option. Now, at this price point, you are going to get a few drawbacks when it comes to lenses. For example, one of the first ones that I noticed was just how close the focus and the aperture ring are to one another. This means if you're going to work it with motors, if you're trying to put those motors on the same side, they're going to probably run into each other, which could be an issue, which means you're going to have to set this up with dual rails and be able to put a motor on each side. Speaking of operating this lens on both sides, you'll notice that there are only markings on one side of the lens. This is sort of a downside, especially if you're going to have somebody pulling focus from the right side of the camera. So this could be a slight issue. Now, if you're doing everything yourself, then you probably won't have a problem. And at this price point with this type of lens, probably most of the people who are going to be considering it are people who are probably a one-man band, single operator. So you may not have that issue. The last thing I'll say about this lens is that I love the fact that even though it is a RF mounted lens, it is still very short. You'll notice from a couple of the lenses that I'm going to show you a little bit later on how not all RF lenses are always this compact. For whatever reason, a lot of manufacturers just take their EF version of a lens and then they slap on a EF to RF adapter on the bottom of it and they call that an RF lens. And I love the fact that this lens seems to be built with RF in mind from the very beginning. All right, now this next lens, I'm honestly not even going to try to pronounce it. So this is a fantastically fast lens, and I'm not exaggerating. This is a T1.0 lens. And at this price point, to get a lens that can shoot at T1.0 is pretty much unheard of. However, I will say, at T1.0, it's really not that usable. There's actually very few lenses that are actually usable at T1.0, and that is just because the shallow depth of field at that point is pretty much almost impossible to work with. Now, that said, I won't 100% discredit this lens because once you get this lens down to about T2.8, it becomes a very, very solid lens. However, this lens has something that none of these other lenses have, and that is character. Shooting with this lens feels like shooting with more of a retro lens where you're gonna get some artifacting, you're gonna get some color shift, you're gonna get some magenta bleed in. Like there's just a look to this lens, especially once you start shooting it more wide open. Even when you're shooting it at that T1.0, I actually think that that would be really good for like a dreamy type sequence, but this lens definitely has character and you have to like that character in order to like this lens. Now, this lens does come with a full kit as well. So not only does it have the 50mm, but it also has a 35 and a 20, which is a weird focal length. But at 20mm, I did notice that that lens doesn't necessarily match that well with the 35 and the 50. The 35 and the 50 are fantastic 1-2 punches. However, the 20 is a little bit unique in its look. Now, obviously you could color grade that and get it fixed. And my friend Tyler made an entire video on these lenses. And so I'll have that link down below if you want to check these out in particular. But for the price point, and if you are going for more of a creative look, I think these are a fantastic budget option. Just know that, you know, at T1.0, if you're trying to shoot at that in order to like get a ton of light into the lens because you're shooting in a low light scenario, pulling focus might be a hassle. Now it is time to move on to probably what is my favorite lens on this list, or my favorite set of lenses on this list, and that has to be the Irex Cine lenses. Now, I did an entire video on these Irex Cine lenses here on the channel, and I'll have that linked up if you want to check it out. But these are some amazingly sharp clinical lenses. And if you are going for that sharp clinical look, for the price, I don't know if there's another lens on the market that's going to be as good as these. Now, there are a few drawbacks to these lenses, which I want to briefly get out of the way. As I mentioned earlier with the 7 Artisan lenses, these Irex lenses are definitely a product of, they had an EF lens, they slapped an RF to EF adapter on the back, and they called it an RF lens, which means, in my opinion, these lenses are a bit bigger and heavier than they actually truly need to be. However, I will say that for the image quality, I am 100% willing to deal with that. The other thing I'll say is that these lenses are a bit more pricey than the other lenses on this list. However, they're going to give you all those professional features that lenses in the thousands and thousands of dollars range would actually be giving you. For example, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to get markings on both sides of these lenses. Also, these lenses are weather sealed, unlike most of these other lenses I've shown you here today. So if you are in a unique situation where you need it to be a little bit more weather sealed, whether it's like a light sprinkle or you're shooting out by the beach or something like that, these lenses are going to be able to handle. The other thing I'll say about these lenses is that they also have this really cool magnetic system at the very front. Now, this magnetic system works not only with their lens hoods, but it also works with their ND filters and their own proprietary matte box. So it is nice that they are innovating in that way. However, just like the Artisan lens, these lenses do have threads on the inside. So if you did want to put a filter on here, a circular ND or a circular polarizer, you could absolutely do that. Just note that this actual threading system here is about 86mm, which is bigger than most traditional camera lenses. Most traditional camera lenses, especially photography lenses, are going to be an 82. So you are going to have to go find a specialty filter in order to put onto the lens. Now, obviously, I could sit here and just gush over these lenses all day long, but I did an entire video talking about them. So if you want to know more about these lenses, definitely check that out. However, at this price point, this is one of those situations where I say buy nice or buy twice. This is buying nice. It's heavier. It's a little bit more expensive than some of these other options, but because of the image quality and the build and the design of these lenses, this is something that I feel like if you invest in a lens like this, you'll absolutely see that investment last you a long time. And speaking of long-term investments, this lens here, the Cine system, is actually the set of lenses that I think I've had the longest. These were my first set of cinema lenses, and I bought the 24, 50, the 14, the 35, and the 85. And these lenses are just a dream. Now, granted, this is a EF mounted lens, and this is something that I've had even back when I was shooting on the Blackmagic system. And these lenses, again, are just a very clinical look. Now, the reason why I bring up these lenses is that even though these are fairly older, because right now the Cine systems seem to keep getting upgrades, like I mentioned before, this is a Cine. However, there is a Rokinon system that's even less expensive, and they also have a CF version or a carbon fiber version of these lenses that are a bit smaller, they're a bit more expensive. However, there are so many options of these lenses on the market that finding used versions of these lenses is actually very easy, and you can get a fantastic price on a used set of Cine lenses. Speaking of used, this is actually a great transition into today's video sponsor, MPB, because purchasing used lenses is actually a secret hack that most filmmakers are doing, and they never really talk about it. See, the whole benefit of purchasing used gear is the fact that you can buy something that now is significantly less expensive. And when most people buy lenses, they don't just buy a single lens, they have to buy a set. See, a lot of times you want your lenses to match. As we mentioned earlier, sometimes with inexpensive lenses, that's not the case. But with a lot of these lenses, like the 7 Artisan, the Irex, the Cine lenses, that matching capability is super helpful because you're probably going to be changing your focal lengths a lot throughout your project. And buying multiple lenses can get pricey quick. Well, with today's sponsor, MPB, you can absolutely eliminate some of that cost. On top of that, MPB is not only going to be able to sell you used gear, but they also vet that gear and they give you a 6-month warranty on it. So that way you can buy that gear with confidence, knowing that if there is a problem or an issue, that you can reach out to MPB and they will get you taken care of. Over on their website, not only do they sell used gear, but they also buy gear from users as well as give you the option to trade in. So you can go over there, get a free quote, and see exactly how much your gear is worth and choose to upgrade your gear. As far as I'm concerned, not only does this help financially, but this also just allows our industry to be more sustainable, giving people the option to purchase used gear as well as sell their old gear back to MPB. I mean, if you head over to MPB right now, you'll actually find that they actually have deals on the 50mm here that I talked about, but they also had some deals on some Irex lenses and some Cine lenses as well. So you can absolutely even check out some of these already budget lenses and get them at an even more affordable rate by buying them used. But definitely head over to MPB's website and check it out for yourself, because as I mentioned, if you're looking for gear and you want to save a little bit of money, buying used is a great idea. But I'd love to know, what are some of your favorite budget-friendly cinema lenses on the market? Leave them down in the comments down below. Also, what other topics should I cover in this series? Should we talk about lighting, cameras, audio? You let me know. Thanks so much for checking out this video, and a massive thank you to all the members of the Creative Fam Academy for helping making videos just like this possible. Be sure to check out that lenses guide on the Creative Fam Academy for all those members, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.